Hi, and welcome to the Dish on Divorce. I'm Jennifer Barkin. And today I have a very special guest, and I'd like my guest, John, to introduce himself.
I'm John Panagakos. I'm a mortgage agent specific to separation and divorce. Thanks for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. So I was really interested in having you on the show because I have seen you around social media. That's where I actually know you from. And you interviewed me for your show. And I've heard you speak about separation mortgages, and I got kind of confused because I thought you needed a separation agreement to get a mortgage.
So common myth, right? Most people think that you need a signed separation agreement in order to purchase a property. In fact, you don't need one. And a lot of people use that as leverage when they're negotiating. So we've had several clients, both men and women, who have approached us, hey, I have this problem. My ex doesn't want to sign. He's trying to use this as leverage, or she's trying to use this as leverage. I'm stuck. I'm like, no, actually, some banks, not all, will say you can proceed without a signed separation agreement. Here's some paperwork that you need to fill out, and then we can move forward. So there's a process.
That's very cool because I think even a lot of mediators like myself and family law lawyers, we don't know this.
Mm-hmm.
We tend to tell our clients, no, unless there's a separation agreement, you're not going to get a mortgage. That's what we tell people.
Right.
So it's not true.
Not true.
We're not giving the right information.
Right. So not entirely true. Sometimes you do need one, right? But in many cases, you don't. And as long as you fit into, Bank ABC and you fit into their lending guidelines, you can move forward with a purchase of a property without a signed separation agreement.
That's really great to know. So you say you specialize in separation mortgages. How did you get there?
Sort of fell on my lap, actually. So about 10 years ago, a friend of my sister's actually is a lawyer. She's now retired. Did a lot of mediation work. And we were talking about files. It was like, oh yeah, these sound, pretty straightforward. At the time, mortgages 10 years ago were a lot easier than they are today. Mm-hmm. And so we noticed that she was passing off the file, which was awesome, and we were getting the client approved. But through the ongoing rule changes within the legislation of mortgages, stress tests, down payment requirements, so on and so forth, people were having a little bit more of a challenge. So I went back to her and said, hey, look, can we consult a little bit on the mortgage piece as it relates to the separation agreement, right? We don't need to know anything else. We don't need to talk about anything else, but can we just sort of do the deal before the deal? Can we just make sure that Mrs. Smith is going to be approved as per the contents of the separation agreement? And that's where the service really took off. And her and other lawyers, mediators that we were working with at the time, we approached them and they said, yeah, what a great idea. Let's get you involved at this point and then move forward so our clients could have greater success.
So what's the point? You say this point. What's the point that people should get you involved?
I always say get us involved early, right? So
early in the separation?
Yeah, early in the process of the negotiation, right? So I'm not here to negotiate anyone's buyout or do what the lawyers do really well. But let's take a mortgage application. Let's see, is there income? Are they paying their bills? Are they not paying their bills? Is the mortgage current now with COVID? Are they not in a position where they're earning an income because of COVID, right? So we're looking at different areas where there could be holes in the mortgage application. So all we want to do is make sure that Mrs. Smith or Mr. Smith are in the best possible position to move forward and sign that agreement with confidence, and then they'll be able to purchase a property or maintain the matrimonial home. And sometimes there's credit repair that we need to help with, right? Sometimes.
So you do that?
Yeah, we will help coach that and what they need to do to move forward.
Wow. Mm-hmm. So You do a lot more than just help people get a mortgage.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's not just, hey, come use us because we have low rates. That just, tip of the iceberg. It's how can we
Like the
improve your
mattress store of mortgages.
Yeah, we're Sealy,
Cheap.
right?
Cheap. Wow, so there's like coaching and you help them, I guess, get to that point that if they don't qualify, that they can qualify.
Exactly.
So back to, you'd mentioned, in a contentious sort of situation, and people do use the holding back, it's a carrot, to not give the separation agreement, right? So it's sort of nice to know that there are options. I remember, it's a long, long time ago, but in my own divorce, which was, I don't know, 20 years ago maybe, there was a house that I wanted. I fell in love with this house, and it was a hot market. And I could afford to buy the house, but I didn't have the signed separation agreement. And I lost the house because it was a really hot market.
Right.
So I still live in the house that I didn't like as much because of that.
Should have called me.
I didn't know you. I didn't know you. You know what? There was no Google back then either.
Yeah, fair enough.
It's 20 years ago. So people should come to you early in the process. Do you have any stories that you could share with our listeners of maybe mistakes people make? What are the biggest mistakes people make?
I think one of the biggest mistakes people make is I think that they, large in part, don't have a lot of confidence, right? They're going through a separation, right? There's a bunch of different things that's going through their head: stress, anxiety, right? Maybe shame. And when they approach us, we try and reinforce it's going to be okay. We're going to help you, and we're going to give you the answer, yes or no. And if the answer is no, we're going to tell you how the answer can be yes. And if the answer is yes, awesome. And then that part of the stress that they're holding on their shoulders goes away, right? So we're really trying to empower as many people as possible to say, you can do this. You're going from 2 incomes to 1. There might be some support income that we can use. Awesome. It's going to be okay. You need to live somewhere. And if you can maintain a property or buy a property, awesome. Here's what the payments look like. If you want to rent, which a lot of people do, and that's totally fine too, let's look at what a renting scenario looks like. Renting in the city of Toronto, let's say it's $3,000, $3,500, however much. Or is your money better spent renting, or is it better spent owning? And so when you give people that information, they really appreciate it. They really like it. They're like, wow, I can actually do this. And so they're able to move forward.
So you're really educating the client.
Lots.
And I find when people go through separation and divorce, this is one of the worst times of their lives. Divorce and separation, as far as people's stress, it goes right up there with death of a loved one and loss of a job. That's even below. So it's really one of the top stressors. So people are not thinking clearly, right? Because when you're worrying about this and you're worrying about this and you're worrying about this, everything is overwhelming. So they get very stuck.
Right. No, exactly. Right. So we're there, we're there to hold their hand. We're there to have a shoulder, empathetic ear. Right. We understand that they're going through a difficult time. Let's try and improve the process. Let's try and make things better. And we're very positive. We will tell them black and white. And it's been great. We've helped literally thousands of people. We're very fortunate.
That's amazing. So what mistakes though do people make?
Well, I think people, so what we try and do is we try and create a process. A needs to happen before B needs to happen before C, so on and so forth. And we try and say to people, listen, don't worry about steps B, C, and D for right now. Let's just focus on A, or let's focus on A and B. So sometimes when people tend to skip ahead, that's when mistakes are made. I find when people are in process of a transition, separation, divorce, they have a lot of people that want to help them. Awesome, mom, dad, girlfriend down the street, whoever, and is in their ear. And it's like, oh, you should do this. You should watch out for this. Hey, talk to Bob down the street. He's my banker, whatever. But people don't know what their best friend, her or his entire situation is.
It's exactly like in any divorce work. Everybody's mother, brother, sisters, uncle has something to say. I knew this person, and you know what? They got everything, or this one got this. But everybody's situation and, the little details of that situation are so different. So what worked for one doesn't necessarily work for the other.
Exactly. So it's a very unique situation. We had someone's father, wonderful guy. He called a couple of weeks ago, and we had this conversation. He's like, my daughter needs this. I said, sure. If we go down this road and we get your daughter this is what her mortgage payments look like. Yes, she'll pay off the mortgage way faster. This is what her payments look like. If we position the mortgage this way, this is what her payments look like. What do you think is best for your daughter? Can she afford this, or is she way better off over here? He's like, oh, I never knew that, right? Bless his heart. He's really just trying to help out with his daughter.
For sure.
And then we had the conversation with the three of us, and she's like, wow, now I know. So we just showed them numbers, and then they're able to make a better informed decision.
Often in the area of divorce, people also bring with them debt, right? There's debt from the marriage, and they have to add that. So do you help with financing, to take the debt, like to put everything into one payment sort of thing, let's say to wrap it up into a mortgage and help them consolidate?
Yeah, it's typically called the refinance when you're taking debt and putting it into the equity of the home.
Right.
Yes, absolutely. So we try and focus not only, the end goal is to get someone a mortgage, right? That's why they approach us. Can they keep the house? Awesome. Or can they buy another property? Here's the mortgage. But what we really try and do is we try and provide that positive cash flow. Are there other debts? Is there a line of credit debt that you want to roll in, or a student line of credit debt, or something? Sometimes there's a CRA debt. There is something out there, or sometimes they need 10, 20 grand to fix the roof or to upgrade the property. Sometimes they want $5,000 to change the look of this room because that's where they had an argument, right? So we have those conversations, and we really want to provide a positive cash flow so they can afford other things in life and just not their mortgage. They need to have RSP money or RESP money for the kids. They need to go out with their girlfriends or the guys. They need to be able to be more well-rounded and build wealth outside of their mortgage also.
Makes a lot of sense. I find people don't understand money.
Mm-hmm.
So, they think, okay, so the mortgage is this much. I can afford that, but what about the cost of living? Because the house doesn't put food on your table, right? So people overextend. So you guide them so that they're in a situation where they can live.
Absolutely, right? Because you still need to pay your taxes, right? And right, you don't want to make food 7 nights a week. You want to.
I don't. I don't look like I like to cook 7 days.
I'm sure you do.
Oh yeah.
But sometimes you want to spoil your kids, or you want to spoil that somebody, or you want to go out for dinner, or whenever restaurants open up again, right? So we want to make sure that they're in a position where we're able to do that, and we will do various affordability scenarios for them, and then they make the decision, right? So we give them the pros and cons of every scenario, and allow them to make the decision, and they love it. They're like, wow, and they ask a lot of good questions, so that we create a really good dialogue.
Do you have a story about your most not naming names?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, confidentiality.
Obviously, yeah.
We have to be ethical. Your most difficult client to date?
So I don't know if I have like a most difficult client per se, but I have clients in difficult situations. So sometimes the other lawyer not cooperating, and there was one where it was about 2.5 years, and we felt bad for our client, and lots of empathy, and she literally, by the end of it, she was like, it felt like she was beat up, right? The other lawyer was really to the bitter end, was making her jump through hoops, and it was horrible. luckily, she had really good counsel. She had a really good mortgage broker. She had really good other people around her who knew what she was going through, and we were there to support her. And we really felt bad. But she got to keep the house. The kids were in the property with her, the same school district. And at the end of it, she's like, it's finally over. She had a good cry, you know what, hugs all around, high fives. It was awesome. But during that process, it was very, very difficult.
It's interesting. And, you know, we've spoken about this on the show before, that the ex, the bully ex, somehow goes out there and finds the bully lawyer. I don't know if there's a list of aggressive bully lawyers to make the other person's life a nightmare.
It's got to be like bullylawyers.com or something.
Bullylawyers.com with infomercials. With infomercials. So I've asked you about what's been your most challenging situation. What's been the most rewarding situation?
So good question. So rewarding is you know, the reward for us is when anyone gets a mortgage and is able to have his or her dreams come true in this particular scenario. But we received a really heartfelt testimonial from this one person, and she top to bottom, she was appreciative. And at the end, she said, if I hadn't met you, I wouldn't have kept my house. If I hadn't met you, my financial outlook wouldn't have been so positive. She's like, you changed my financial future, and I thank you. And she's like, I'm going to recommend a lot of people to you. And anytime someone needs a mortgage, you know, please help them. And we talk to her every year because we do client annual reviews for people just to make sure that everything's the way it's supposed to be and that their rate is, you know, the lowest that can be for that period of time. So we
that in itself, that's amazing. So, because usually, and I'm just thinking maybe my own history or anybody I know's history, you go, you get your financing, you get your mortgage, and you get a statement, you know, with how much you've paid down and what's owing and so on and so on. But nobody ever really bothers later to call and say, hey, just checking how things are, and I found you a better rate, so maybe you want to think about breaking the mortgage that we got you 5 years ago and, you know, paying the penalty, which is this much because you can refinance at this much today. Yeah. You do that?
Yeah, we try and do that as often as possible, right? If the opportunity presents itself, right? So now, within the last 14 months of COVID, we've seen that rates have plummeted. So we're trying to reach as many clients as possible via email or, you know, simple call. You know, everyone gets, you know, whether it's a newsletter or they'll get like a birthday email. We have an automated system that does this. But that's the time where really we're trying to pick up the phone and say, hey, you know what, like, do you want to talk about this? Do you not want to talk about this? Let's have a conversation. And you know what, we've saved a lot of people even more money than before. So we do our very best to always be there. So it's not a transactional thing; it's a long-term relationship.
That's amazing. That's amazing. It almost sounds like, you know, the old small town doctor who really cares for his patients that doesn't exist anymore.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Right. And then hopefully it's a positive experience. And then we're all word of mouth, just like any service. Right. So if they have a positive experience, they'll tell some friends, and you know they'll keep coming back.
I would. Mm-hmm. I would for sure. And I'm really happy that I've learned about your service because I'm definitely going to refer the people that come through my door because I think it's amazing. What else would you like the viewers to know?
You know, the biggest thing, just try, right? I wouldn't necessarily go speak to 10 different brokers, bankers, this, that. If you want to interview 2, 3, 4, 5 people, totally. Follow your gut. If we're the right fit, awesome. If your banker is the right fit, great. But certainly develop a relationship with that person. And, you know, are you going to be calling that person at 8 o'clock at night, or do you need the phone, someone to accommodate your working hours? You know, Do you want someone that's only working 9 to 5, or do you want someone that doesn't really necessarily have banking hours? So that's really important. Like, what's important to you, the client, in terms of service, because rates, they're going to be low regardless of where you go, but really it boils down to service. And what's important to you, trust your gut, and if it's somebody else, awesome. Move forward with that person and move forward with confidence.
So again, it's the relationship, and I think that's the same in my work and any of the work that I do. And I spend a lot of time talking to people. I was just talking before we were filming, no charge. They're in the worst part of their lives, for one of them. Hearing their story, just listening, and it may not be things there may not be things I can really, that I feel that I'm even best equipped for their situation. So out go my referrals and here just to make sure that people are taken care of. And sometimes even, let's say, if somebody's looking for someone to write an assessment for children or family mediator, whatever it may be, I often give people other names of people that I know are really good, because at the end of the day, I think that when you're dealing with those really emotional, hard decisions, we can all be equally good, but you have to be comfortable and work with the person that you connect with and that you feel you have a relationship with.
100%. It's 100% true. We often get calls, right? Like we're certainly lucky. We have people who are referring us and recommending us, which is great. Sometimes people have a mortgage, right? They're like, hey, you know what? I have this approval. You know what? What do you think? And like, well, what is it? Let me just tell you if it's good or not, right? And I'm happy to do that, right? And we often say, you know what you have is great. Maybe just tweak it this way. Ask your banker or ask the other broker to change it this way, because here are the benefits. And we often receive a lot of praise for that. Like, hey, you have it. You don't need to bring it over here. We appreciate it, but you're good. And know that you have a good mortgage product complemented with a good rate. So it's really important that people know this, and they know that they have a good rate. And if they were to break their mortgage, how can they get out of that, right? And you always want to make sure that you have the upper hand and the bank doesn't.
Oh, for sure. Oh, for sure. So I'm just really impressed with that personal service that you're giving to your customers, and it makes sense why the word of mouth and the referral business is so big for you, because really you can be great at what you do, but it's what people say.
Yeah, exactly.
It's what people say, right? It's like the restaurant business. If you don't treat people well, doesn't matter how great you've been in the past, couple bad reviews and gone.
Right. There's a great restaurant in Leslieville. They don't even have a sign on the door, right? But people know where to go for great food. Right?
Hopefully we can go to restaurants again.
Yeah, a couple weeks.
You think so?
No.
Enough of COVID. So, John, if our viewers, they want to reach you, they want to contact you, how do they find you?
Best thing to do, separationmortgages.com. Follow me on Instagram. I'm becoming an Instagrammer. I think that's the word. I've recently started doing that. So
You're on the gram.
Yeah, I'm on the gram.
You're on the gram.
I'm on the gram. So follow us on Instagram, Separation Mortgages, and then reach out. We always pick up the telephone, right? And if you don't get me on my phone, either leave a message or send a text. We'll call you right back.
So before we end, I'd like to thank you not only for being on the show, but you brought a present for Leanne and I. So is it okay if I open it?
Absolutely. Go do it.
I'm going to go get my present. You didn't have to. And what do we have here? And you wrote a book.
Yeah. So small. Small.
I should have taken this out before the show. So a personal guide to mortgages. And can the general public get a hold of this?
Yeah. So we're trying to be able to give it to people. We're trying to put it all digital so we can just email it to people. So it's great. So small, shameless self-promotion. Don't judge the book by the back cover.
It's a good picture of you. He looks nice.
But what you really want is the mug. And if you're a coffee drinker, which I'm told you are, that will keep your...
It's big. I drink coffee all day.
That'll keep it really hot the entire day.
That is awesome. I appreciate it. And I got pens.
Yeah.
I got pens too. So thank you so much.
Anytime. Happy to do it.
Okay.
Thanks for having me on the show.
Anytime. We'd love to have you back.
Yeah, let me know. Pen me in.
I'm Jennifer Barkin, and thank you for tuning in today to The Dish on Divorce. Have a good night.